There is a huge and baffling array of historical anomalies still hiding across the Giza Plateau. Melted steps, melted stone, melted sand, megaliths of gigantic, almost impossible proportions, and so on. Yet one of the most intriguing of all these peculiar unexplained relics must be those which have an extraterrestrial origin. There are undoubtedly many secrets still contained in, around, and beneath these gigantic structures, chambers which, when opened, experience media blackouts, only to return to report that said tomb was looted earlier in its life and was apparently found empty. The real question, then, is what are the Egyptian antiquities hiding? Could there be more artifacts or objects with extraterrestrial connections still to be found? In particular, within Cheops itself. King Tut's dagger, which was once struck from metals with alien origins, may just be one piece in a set. Rumors abound in regards to the possible existence of an entire throne attributed to Khufu himself, which was not only made from the same alien materials, but could still be hidden within the Great Pyramid. Professor Giulio Magli of Milan Polytechnic, for example, believes the throne of the pharaoh Khufu is concealed in a secret chamber deep within Cheops itself. Quote, "There is a possible interpretation which is in good agreement with what we know about the Egyptian funerary religion as witnessed in the pyramid's texts. In these texts, it is said that the pharaoh, before reaching the stars of the north, will have to pass the gates of the sky and sit on his throne of iron." End quote. Now, thanks to scanned pyramids and the use of penetrative technologies, a new mystery chamber is in the crosshairs. Currently designing an inflatable robot to explore the space, the robot can be pushed into empty spaces via a 1.5-inch keyhole drilled into the wall, then inflated into a blimp-like drone. Lead researcher Dr. Jean-Baptiste Moret told Digital Trends, quote, "The main challenge is to insert a complete exploration robot in a hole that is as small as possible." End quote. The question remains, where did all this meteoric material originate from? Was there a catastrophic event in our past, one responsible for not only these materials, but the number of other melted artifacts within Giza? Although only speculation at the moment, but the possible existence of the throne is, no doubt, highly compelling. We will keep you posted. During the reign of King Tut between 1333 BC and 1324 BC, the understanding of iron metallurgy, or indeed the casting of such objects, was very limited. Iron smelting is the extraction of usable metal from oxidized iron ores. It is vastly more difficult than smelting tin and copper. Such metals could be cold-worked in simple pottery kilns, and then cast into molds, a process largely accepted as being present within ancient Egyptian times. However, the smelting of iron requires hot working, and can only be melted in specially designed extremely heated furnaces. It is therefore not surprising that humans only mastered iron smelting after several millennia of the Bronze Age. However, there is a pair of relics found within ancient Egypt whose sheer existence disprove the officially held chronological account of when these hardened metals were developed. Or do they? Within the ancient wrappings of the sarcophagus, which contained Pharaoh Tutankhamun, 2 daggers were discovered. Encased in gold sheaths, they were placed there more than 3,000 years prior. One had an iron blade, and the other with a blade made of hardened gold. Yet both are not made from regular metals. Amazingly, these daggers are in fact made from metals not native to Earth. It is officially accepted that it would have been quite difficult, nigh impossible, for ancient civilizations to have acquired iron in pure states. So most of the pure iron found in weaponry within this mysterious culture are academically accepted as coming from, quote, meteoric sources. This explanation may be easier to digest for the majority of population of Earth. However, it is not only a flawed explanation, but illogical. If this ancient Egyptian civilization, which possessed knowledge we are yet to rediscover, did indeed extract these alien metals from meteorites, yet largely accepted to have not been able to cast such metals, then an obvious question arises. How did they cast the metal into daggers? The official explanation offered provides no answer, as is often the case with out-of-place artifacts. A more logical scenario is that these daggers were in fact the remnants of a far older civilization, a civilization responsible for the construction of ancient Egypt, a group of people visited by, or indeed traveled to, people from another world entirely. Additionally, modern advanced metallurgical analysis found that the iron dagger is not a normal meteoritic iron, but a complex, intelligent, and very strong alloy, containing various amounts of nickel, chromium, and cobalt. Furthermore, the nickel content is so high, nearly 25%, it makes this alloy totally different from those made by man. The alchemy required to make such a non-rusting metal was developed many centuries, if not millennia, after King Tut's death. Just where did these daggers come from? How old could they actually be? Were they made as a gift by a race who visited Earth? Apart from our postulations, it seems no one can produce a working theory.
Did a now-lost civilization not only once develop seacraft to conquer the oceans, but advanced aircraft similar to those of the modern world? Did they utilize these technologies in the construction of the Great Pyramids? The exoskeleton within Cheops, for example, is not of the same scale as those which make up the outer casing stones, with at least 4 different stages of construction and/or conservation, identified by us via not only differing techniques in the construction of mostly the casing stones, but also the various choices of stone and states of erosion. These stones are not only visible within the stripped sections of the outer casing stones, such as on the east wing, but can also be seen making up the walls of the Grand Gallery, stones often many thousands of tons in weight. But when the structure was originally completed, they accomplished a finish like that of glass. We have in the past covered the mysteriously melted steps which can be found within Dendera Temple. What made this anomaly especially interesting, however, are the many depictions of a mysterious object which has become known in the modern day as the Dendera Light. Furthermore, with the past discovery of the Baghdad batteries, artifacts which have now predictably gone missing, and in all possibilities are now within the bowels of a certain institute, indicate the past harnessing of electricity, thus giving life to many conspiracies and indeed possibilities of lost and concealed technologies similar to those of the modern day. Another curious hieroglyph, however, just like that of the Dendera Light, can be found within the Temple of Seti I at Abydos. Dismissed as pareidolia by academics explaining them away as simply part of a hieroglyphic document referring to Ramesses II, could this hieroglyph, however, be depicting several ancient craft? Although all the hieroglyphic characters were perfectly cut, we are presented with the argument that these specific letters were not, conveniently forming together, creating a shape reminiscent of an ancient aircraft purely by accident. Additionally, there are also clearly other craft and animals of flight perfectly depicted upon the wall, yet the shape dismissed as simply an error. Could this explanation be a cover-up? Not only revealing that many hieroglyphs are still yet to be correctly deciphered, but the existence of hidden lost technologies, many beyond our wildest imaginations. There are countless legends surrounding the existence of ancient Vimana found across the world. The Nazca lines, for example, only visible from incredibly high altitudes. Could all of these pieces of evidence indeed suggest that a past civilization did indeed once master flight just as we did? What do you think about these hieroglyphs and indeed the other anomalies mentioned? Ancient, now lost technologies concealed and ignored due to an already built yet faulty paradigm? Or a simple case of mistranslation and pareidolia? We find these mysterious hieroglyphs highly compelling.
From time to time, we will share with you one of the more intriguing exhibits that can be found within the museums of Giza. Beyond the mountainous displays of precious jewels and finely cast golden relics, which captivate the crowds who flock to experience this extremely rich history, we personally find the more valuable of objects are often overlooked. Indeed, these precious masks and past pharaohs' possessions are undoubtedly exquisite in nature. However, there are some objects, never designed to stun or impress, but built with a function. Functions which could shed light on the most intriguing and mysterious aspects of this past civilization. the Khufu ship being but one of these said artifacts. A boat found disassembled under the Great Pyramid, once said to have floated through the sky. And although the physical idea of this ship actually flying is a leap too far for some, there is, in fact, an artifact which exists, found in 1898 during an excavation of the Padi Ayman tomb in Saqqara, Egypt, which you may find a bit more practically designed for flight through the Egyptian skies. Although numerous sources over the past century have surfaced accusing Egyptian authorities of concealing the discovery of vimanas, ancient flying machines, within the pyramids of Giza, our said artifact seems to have slipped through this net of secrecy. Often with these well-stocked and well-preserved tombs, resting places of past pharaohs, whom once possessed unimaginable riches, numerous toy models of their once favored crafts and vessels will be discovered. Exquisitely constructed miniature replicas of their favorite forms of travel. It seems this artifact may have indeed been filtered through the security netting of public paradigm. As doing so, it seems to have lost its tailplane. Known as the Saqqara bird, it is now largely thought by many to have been a replica of an ancient flying craft, more specifically a glider. Clearly inspired by a bird's flight, the fixed wing upon its back has been found to be perfectly angled to create lift. Egyptian physician, archaeologist, parapsychologist, and dowser Khalil Messiah has concluded that the ancient Egyptians developed the first aircrafts. Predictably, he has experienced considerable hostility regarding his exposé of evidences. One particular effort was undertaken by a character known as Martin Gregory, a builder and designer of free-flight gliders. He apparently built an exact replica of the Saqqara bird made of balsa wood. After testing this replica, Gregory would conclude that the Saqqara bird never flew. He told the interested parties that it was totally unstable in flight. Even after a tailplane was fitted, he claimed that the glider's performance was disappointing. He finished by concluding that the Saqqara bird was probably made as a child's toy or a weather vane. This clear attempt to suppress the truth, however, failed, and Martin has since been proven to have lied regarding the abilities of the glider. The question is, why did he lie? According to Messiah's son, Dawood Khalil Messiah, a successful architect who has thankfully continued the work of his father, Gregory's suggestion that the Saqqara bird was a weather vane is impossible, due to the lack of markings or any holes on the model that would serve as a means of hanging it. Additionally, and most importantly, aerodynamics expert Simon Sanderson also tested a replica model in a wind tunnel without a tailplane, and found that it produced 4 times the glider's own weight and lift. In Liverpool University, Sanderson then subjected it to another, more powerful wind tunnel, this time after adding the missing tail. He stated that the Saqqara bird actually flew quite well, clearly to the annoyance of certain people who are probably now regretting not seizing the entire artifact some years ago, rather than just the tailplane. Over 2,000 years after the ancient Egyptians carved this mysterious bird, modern technology has proven beyond doubt that at full size, it could have indeed once flown through the Egyptian skies. The Nazca Lines are undoubtedly one of Earth's most perplexing ancient relics. Not only are they unimaginably big, but their accuracy still baffles all who try to explain them, even to this day. With many of these ancient drawings seemingly only visible or indeed fully appreciated from great altitude, many people over the centuries have predictably pondered upon the possibility of there having once been ancient flying machines. And although many of these ancient marks could be perceived as possibly past runways or landing sites, there exists one site in particular that possesses some of the most compelling, if little shared characteristics of them all. Known as El Fuerte, it can be found amongst a pre-Columbian archaeological site in Bolivia. It is believed that for over 1,000 years, the site served as a ceremonial center for various pre-Columbian cultures, ultimately becoming the home of the Inca, who turned the site into the east capital of their empire. We have often stated that we strongly believe that at some point within Earth's distant history, a highly advanced intercontinental civilization once flourished, building enormous stone structures. With knowledge and capabilities in stone carving and building, we, the modern man, are yet to unravel. And although the site consists of an average ancient settlement, complete with buildings, architecture, and irrigational ruins, the most intriguing feature of the site, and the purpose for the video, is what was once carved out of the solid rock atop the mountain. Along the crest of the hill is the most intriguing feature of the site, or possibly Nazca itself, known as the El Cascabel, which can be translated as the rattle. It is two parallel lines oriented to the eastern sky, with a position of azimuth at 71 degrees and an altitude of about 6.75 degrees. Interestingly, this is the exact orientation of the rise of Pleiades at different times within history. Why was this curious carving etched into the top of this mountainside within Bolivia? Was this ancient site once used as a launching pad? Furthermore, intriguingly, much of the surrounding stone seems to have experienced ancient quarrying. Is this ancient mountain the site of an ancient quarry, once done by a group who had flying vimanas at their disposal? An incredible sight, which we find highly compelling.
The Quimbaya artifacts, found within Colombia in the late 20th century. They are a series of several dozen solid gold artifacts, which were made by the Quimbaya civilization over 3,000 years ago. A few of these fascinating artifacts have become popularly known as the Quimbaya aeroplanes, and for good reason. Not only have these wonderful artifacts almost single-handedly ignited an interest in ancient astronaut theory within millions of people who've come into contact with them, but they also clearly resemble flying craft of our modern age. Now displayed within the Smithsonian Institute, there is one in particular, now known as the Columbia Jet, that has captivated many a great mind over the decades. The Smithsonian's account, placed beneath the ancient artifact, states that the gold artifact is nothing but a mere stylized insect from the Quimbaya culture. This small golden model, only about 2 inches in length and made of solid 22-karat gold, was initially discovered within an ancient tomb. When first catalogued, it was assessed as a zoomorph, or animal-looking. However, the Columbia Jet is now on display with 6 other similar objects that have been found in tombs within Venezuela and Peru. Extensive analysis has been undertaken upon the jet's shape and possible original inspiration. This has been in an attempt to decipher what this tiny model could represent. The replica was completed in 1996 and was so aerodynamically stable that it flew better than most contemporary jets. It was so successful, in fact, they decided to build another one, but this time with a full jet engine, and this craft apparently flew just like a modern jet. Was the Columbia Jet once a real ancient aeroplane? With results so compelling, it's hard to see how an explanation of it being but a mere insect can possibly stay afloat.
Ancient Uparts. A section of ancient history which many find as their preference. It is undeniably one of the strongest areas of argument within the study of antiquities, which is in support of the past existence of once highly capable, incredibly technologically advanced, yet now lost ancient civilizations. The ancient astronaut theory being one main topic of interest within the Uparts realm. When it comes to certain current or now past allies, in alliance with our so often reiterated posit of the existence and the volumes of surviving evidence in support of a now lost, often also claimed, now actively hidden, enormous number of chapters of human history. It is thanks to their laborious collaborative efforts which has allowed us to accomplish such a strong and compelling evidence. In addition, the realization that much of these sites and anomalous features also display a strong evidential suggestion that many of these civilizations somehow succumbed suddenly, possibly to a past cataclysm. However, If this vast and still growing file of evidence, all suggesting sudden demise, is, in the future, somehow found to have been an undeniable reality, possibly a repeated event, a question arises: who could these claimed ancient astronauts possibly have been? The evidence suggesting sudden halts in undertaking within countless elaborately created, by clearly highly resourced people, megalithic quarries, which were inexplicably abandoned, litter our planet. This may suggest that these UPARTs are either of returning, unfortunate witnesses to this cataclysm, somehow returning many generations later, successfully making contact with a civilization raised from the ashes of their now forgotten world, somehow surviving all this time in an ancient spacecraft, possibly better, possibly similar to our own modern space stations, absent long enough to be depicted by a people presumably astonished by their existence. Secondly, they could quite possibly depict ancient alien visitors to our planet, either once deliberately making contact or once crashing here, forcing these entities to make contact, thus witnessed. Yet, if true, their likeness to Earthlings is a controversial consequence to said history. Or are all somehow a mere coincidence? One or two hoaxes, we feel, is a real reality, but for all these magnificent, enigmatic, and often clear depictions of similarly looking individuals all being hoaxes? Yet so far separated geographically, we find unlikely. One must keep this in mind when studying such artifacts, such as the Istanbul rocket, the claimed ancient space module which became one of the most popular artifacts of the Istanbul Archaeological Museum. Sought after by Western scientists and media alike, pored over and written about in hundreds of articles across Europe, even featuring on television programs and within many newspaper articles. However, what is fascinating about this reality, that for many years, many specialists, often talented people, also just as often funded to presumably determine an inaccuracy in the object's claimed age, did not. Not until a few years ago, that is. In the last few years, it has been that the Istanbul rocket was apparently found to have been a hoax, a plaster cast made some 25 years ago, a puzzling claim when one remembers that just 5 years after, the space module was sought after by German and English, among many other national archaeologists, and was, for a long time, secured in the preservation unit of the museum. Was this really a plaster cast, a mere 5 years old when this discovery was announced, successfully fooling the world's scientific communities? Or was it like so many other artifacts we study, successfully stolen, then replaced with a clear fake? We will leave that up to you to decide from the evidence available. But an argument for found crash craft can also be seen in the inspiration for the creation of things, like that of the lid of Pakal's tomb. An enigmatic depiction of this same form of technology, again, turns up all over South America, and even further afield. The Kiev spaceman, yet another found far away in the remote, desolate landscapes of Ukraine. Clearly, a depiction of a gas-breathing, humanoid-shaped being, depicted with seemingly no injuries, yet the reason for said depiction is an ongoing debate, yet due to its clear characteristics, a welcome member of this long list of ancient UPARTs. Ancient astronauts? Or merely an extremely elaborate, highly complex, hard-worked, long-lived hoax? We find the evidence to support the theory highly compelling.